Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Let's Talk Criterion, where we take a look at the 1959 United Artists comedy Some Like It Hot, directed by Billy Wilder, getting a 4K upgrade in the collection. Kino Lorber released Some Like It Hot on 4K in January 2022. It was a scan from the original camera negative. Criterion had the rights for the Blu-ray edition in the US, and a deal between Kino Lorber for MGM United Artists Classic Films temporarily saw Criterion lose the ability to release the film on 4K. Now, a few years later, Criterion can now release a 4K edition, and as usual, they retain the original supplemental features and the same artwork designed by F. Ron Miller. The Blu-ray release was only available via Criterion in the US from its date of release back in November 2018. The film, of course, is world famous, mainly because of the teaming up of Jack Lemmon, Tony Curtis, and the blonde bombshell Marilyn Monroe, who had won her lawsuit with MGM, and she switched over to United Artists for this film. It's directed, produced, and co-written by Billy Wilder, and also stars George Raft, Pat O'Brien, Joey Brown, Joan Shawley, and Nehemiah Persoff in supporting roles. Now, the screenplay is by Wilder and IAL Diamond, and it's based on another screenplay by Robert Thorin and Michael Logan from the 1935 French film Fanfare of Love. It tells a tale of two musicians during the Prohibition era who disguise themselves as women to escape Chicago mobsters who they witnessed committing murder. And it's purely due to the inventiveness of Wilder's direction and his penchant for comedy farce and the personalities of Lemmon, Curtis and Monroe that make it work so well. The film opened on March 29, 1959, to a great audience reception and much praise from critics. We have saxophonist Joe and a bull fiddle thumper Jerry, who are forced by circumstances to masquerade as members of an all-girl orchestra to keep from being cut down by mobsters. Now, Wilder very closely avoids any swish connotation by placing the story in the late 1920s, so his comic players not only have the fun of burlesquing women, but delivering all-out satires on the flappers of that time. And Curtis is given the opportunity to be manly and a sort of superwolf when during a double masquerade he assumes a Cary Grant voice and set of psychiatric jargon by which he induces Marilyn Monroe's character Sugar Cane to plead for the privilege of seducing him. And Lemmon's wildly uproarious impersonation of a Max Sennett-type bathing beauty recalls the lampoons of shrill femininity which brought Bert Savoy stardom in the Ziegfeld Follies. And he winds up being engaged to an often divorced wacky playboy, that's Joey Brown. When at the fade-out he reveals his real sex, Brown just says, well, nobody's perfect. And two other old-timers, Pat O'Brien as a prohibition agent and George Raft as a gang leader, show their expert knowledge in getting the show on the road. Wilder, with their aid, performs the remarkable feat of mixing farce with cold-blooded professional murder without skipping a beat in this symphony of laughter. Two musicians, Curtis and Lemmon, escape the raid and are in a garage, gassing up a borrowed car when Raft enters with his mob to put the heat on Stone and his associates. And the two musicians are the only surviving witnesses. Now, to get out of town, they dress as women and they take jobs in an all-femme band with a hard-as-nails virtuoso, Sweet Sue, played, of course, by Joan Shawley. The vocalist and ukulele player in the outfit is Marilyn Monroe, who has been portrayed by many saxophone players, and she's going to Florida in the hope of landing a millionaire. Curtis, while posing as a girl confidant, falls in love with her, and in an uproarious dormitory party with a hot water bottle full of bourbon, the rest of the band jammed and giggling into the upper berth of the squealing, spurious blonde, played by Jack Lemmon. Now, Curtis keeps switching from female guise to that of a millionaire yachtsman in order to woo Marilyn, who appears in a wardrobe totally designed by Ori Kelly. Now, whatever the part requires, and that includes talent, Marilyn has that in abundance. Eventually, the gangsters, disguising their meeting as a convention of Italian Opera Lovers Association, arrive on the scene. Other successful bits in this completely successful farce are played by Billy Gray, Dave Barry, Mike Mazurki, Harry Wilson, Beverly Wills and Barbara Drew. And Charles Lang Jr.'s deliberately harsh photography has been edited for fast pace by Arthur Schmidt. Adolf Deutsch's background score plays a masterful part here in making the audience accept killing as part of comedy, and the song supervision by Matti Malnick is an equally expert recollection of the period. Tony Curtis was spotted by Billy Wilder while he was making the film Houdini, and he thought Curtis would be perfect for the role of Joe. Wilder's first idea for the role of Jerry was Frank Sinatra, but he thought it would be too difficult as Sinatra didn't want to do drag. Finally, Wilder saw Lemmon in the comedy Operation Madball and selected him for that part. Wilder and Lemmon went on, of course, to make numerous films together, including The Apartment, and several films which also included Walter Matthau. Wilder and Diamond did not expect a star as big as Marilyn Monroe to take the part of Sugar Cane. Wilder had in mind Mitzi Gaynor, and the studio hired a female impersonator, Barbette, to coach Lemmon and Curtis. Now, with regard to the sound design, there is a strong musical element, as I say, in the film, with the soundtrack created by Adolf Deutsch. It's got an authentic 1920s jazz feel, using sharp, brassy strings to create tension in certain moments. Now, Wilder chose to shoot the film in black and white, as Lemmon and Curtis, in full drag costume and makeup, looked unacceptably grotesque in the early colour tests. But despite Monroe's contract requiring the film to be made in colour, she agreed to it being filmed in black and white, after saying that Curtis and Lemmon's makeup gave them a girlish appearance on colour film. Now, of course, Marilyn Monroe had a reputation for being difficult with directors, and this film was no exception. She often insisted on retakes, which slowed down progress, but a star of her calibre was seldom ignored. And Wilder came to a compromise with her in order to complete the filming. Now, Some Like It Hot didn't remain just on celluloid. It became a Broadway musical. It was launched in 2022 with music by Mark Shyman and lyrics by Shyman and Scott Whitman, and a book by Matthew Lopez and Amber Ruffin. It's in fact due to debut in London's West End this year, in a venue, cast and production still to be announced. But it's the part of the legacy of the film that has lasted. And the film comes to 4K on Dolby Vision HDR, with a Blu-ray disc as well, with the film and these special features. We have an audio commentary from 1989 featuring film scholar Howard Suber. Programme on Ori Kelly's magnificent costumes for the film, featuring costume designer and historian Deborah Nadulman-Nandas and costume historian and archivist Larry McQueen. 3 behind-the-scenes documentaries, appearances by director Billy Wilder on The Dick Cavett Show from 1982, conversation from 2001 between actor Tony Curtis and film critic Leonard Moulton, French television interview from 1988 with actor Jack Lemmon, radio interview from 1955 with actor Marilyn Monroe, a trailer, and an essay by author Sam Wazin. And cover art, as I have already said, is by F. Ron Miller. Some Like It Hot has a running time of 121 minutes and comes in a 185:1 aspect ratio, and it releases in the US only on 4K UHD, Blu-ray and DVD on Tuesday the 8th of April as existing spine 950. Many may have already acquired the Kino 4K release and therefore won't need or choose to upgrade. But if you haven't got this 50s classic in your collection, now is the opportunity to nab yourself a copy in a nice pristine 4K restoration. And of course it will even be half price if you wait for the July Barnes & Noble sale. By 1962, Some Like It Hot had grossed $14 million in the US, and according to the numbers, the film ultimately grossed $25 million in the US, but as of 2020, it had grossed $83.2 million internationally. The film now can be enjoyed in its best form by many cinema connoisseurs the world over, and it's certainly become a contemporary comedy classic. Now, some sad news with the recent deaths of a director and an actor. Masahiro Shinoda was a Japanese film director who served his apprenticeship working with Yasuhiro Ozu in 1953 and in Shochiku Studios. He was a central figure in the Shochiku New Wave alongside Nagisha Oshima, and he worked in a variety of genres from the Yakuza film Pale Flower, which of course is in the Criterion collection, to the samurai film Assassination. But he became particularly well known for his focus on marginal characters, and indeed for his interest in traditional Japanese theatre. Now, this particular interest found its greatest expression, of course, in his film Double Suicide. He won the 1991 Japan Academy Prize for Director of the Year for his film Childhood Days. And very recently, we also sadly lost actor Val Kilmer, who passed away from pneumonia amongst his family and his friends. He starred in the 1980s comedy Top Secret and Real Genius, and of course he catapulted to fame with his role as Iceman in Top Gun. He also starred as Jim Morrison in The Doors, as well as Doc Holliday in Tombstone, and he took other roles in films like Willow, True Romance, The Island of Dr. Moreau, The Ghost and the Darkness, and of course one of his famous roles in Heat. And he recently reprised his role as Iceman in the Top Gun sequel that was made, Top Gun Maverick. He appeared in a single scene with Tom Cruise. Now, he also did stage work, and his stage work included The Slab Boys, Shakespeare play Henry IV Part 1, and 'Tis a Pity She's a Whore. And in his later life, he underwent a tracheal procedure that damaged his vocal cords, and that left him with great difficulty in speaking. His memoir, I'm Your Huckleberry, a memoir, was published in 2020. And there is also a documentary called Val from 2021. And this documentary details his struggle with his health and his career. And I recommend that you take a look at that documentary. So both of those people leave a great body of work for us to appreciate. Next time round on Let's Talk Criterion, we look at Wong Kar-wai's Chungking Express. Now, this was released in Blu-ray only on the Wong Kar-wai set a few years ago from Criterion, but this 4K is coming to the collection very soon. So until then, from me, as always, it's goodbye, and above all, good Criterion viewing.